A lot of people are saying this just reeks of the Ha Sung-jin draft pick from years ago. Remember, that was a Paul Allen fell in love with a international player, South Korean Ha Sung-jin. They used the 47th overall pick on him.
Yeah, that's not like a reach. That's a very late
It's
second
round pick. It was just that they hyped up that Paul Allen had fallen in love with him. Well, but Joe Cronin he said it, man. They've been on this guy for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
We've been scouting him deeply for almost 2 years now. We've had, we had a scout identify him during one of his under 18 events, and then we sent Mike and Sergi, our two assistant GMs, over to China that fall to go scout him live. When they came back from that trip, they left very, very impressed, and we were actually hoping he'd be in last year's draft. He didn't declare last year, so we continued to scout him for the last year, this last past season. And as we studied him more and more throughout this process through the spring, we saw him at the Combine, of course, met with him at the Combine, and then we're able to bring him in here and had a good workout here, and we're able to spend more time with him here. So, between our scouts identifying him early on and then some of our big key decision makers seeing him very early on, I felt like we had a big advantage in our scouting process and building our book on him as a player.
There's a couple things to take away from that. One, Mike and Sergi, cannot go anywhere without getting caught in 4K. There is a photo from that night of them in the crowd in November of 2023 in China for that scouting trip. And I think they were there for a week or so because there's another one of them like December.
It's like
2nd,
mid-December.
Something along those lines. So this is not a, no, they've been tracking him for 2 years, and I didn't know it at the time, and obviously until last night. I think I mentioned this to you when I was down there at Summer League last year. They scrimmaged against the Chinese national team, and it was at the practice facility that's detached from the Thomas and Mack UNLV Center. And the Blazers were going to have media availability, and there was just a kid that was, a security guard working the door, and I'm like, we need to get inside. It's 112 degrees outside. He's like, I can't let you in. And I'm like, okay, you need to go get somebody to let us in because I'm not standing out in 112-degree heat. So he disappears for a few minutes. He lets us in. But that's it. Like,
did you say, do you know who I am?
No, I was entirely complaining about how hot it was. I was like, I am cooking out here, dude. There's no shade out here. I need to get inside. And like he went and talked to somebody with Blazer Security or PR, and they're like, oh yeah, no, you can let him in. But the door was open to the gym. And so I just waddled on over and watched the final 2 minutes of this scrimmage. And I saw Donovan. I'm like, because this is, first time seeing Donovan live. I was like, okay. And I see this huge Chinese kid. And I'm just like, that kid's big as hell. And I remember looking over at Mike, who's right there, and he kind of did double take, like, how'd you get in here? And I was like, hey, they didn't stop me. But I got 2 minutes, and I looked at Mike. I go, that kid's huge. And he just kind of smiled and nodded, like, yeah, he's pretty big. And just kind of let it go. And I was like, looking back at that now, I'm like, you son of a, come on, man. You didn't give me a little, like, hey, you should watch this kid, watch a little tape on him, nothing?
Well, one of the things about him that Yang Hansen that people are a little bit worried about is conditioning. Remember, that was a big issue with Donovan Clingan, 7'2" players and 7'1" and tall. Anybody over 7 feet, that is a concern that you have. It was the reason why Zach Edey came back for another year at Purdue, is because they said you need to work on your conditioning and your footwork. You need to be quicker with your feet, and you need to be in shape. Zach Edey did that.
Yeah.
I mean, he did that in spades. It was a night and day difference from his first combine to his second combine.
His first combine had some of the worst athletic measurements you've ever seen.
So
outside of his enormous size.
You take Donovan Clingan, where, remember, his ramp up and why people were begging for him to get more minutes, and they were like, can't really play him that much more. He's tired. The college game, Donovan Clingan's sophomore year, he played in 35 games and averaged 22 and a half minutes per game. Okay. Yang Hansen is playing in the CBA in China. He played in 45 games last year
Mhm.
and averaged 32.8
Yeah,
minutes.
33 minutes a game in a league that is significantly faster and longer quarters.
The previous year, so when he was 18 years old,
Mhm.
they went further in the playoffs. He played 51 games, averaged 33.3 minutes per game. So where he is, and you take that, college game's only 40 minutes long,
Mhm.
right? So in China, they play 48-minute
Mhm.
games, an NBA length game. He was getting far more run going up and down. Again, he doesn't have the same size people leaning on him as
No.
he will in the NBA. He doesn't have the athletes around him on either side of the ball that he will in the NBA. There will be an adjustment, but this is a young man who has played significant minutes in long stretches of basketball.
Yeah, the conditioning stuff I don't think is something they're worried about. In fact, I think they're kind of excited to get him into their facility, get him into an NBA training regimen,
Yeah.
diet, H&P, all of the things, and see if he can be a guy that can really give you 34 minutes a night of high-level basketball.